A very good evening and welcome to News Tonight, your one stop for all the biggest news and events of the day. I'm Tina Jha. Let's begin with the headlines. Just weeks ahead of the general election in the country, Pakistani court sentences former Premier Nawaz Sharif to 10 years in jail in the Panama Papers leak case. Dr Mariam and her husband also sentenced for abetment. No dispute that Chief Justice of India is the master of the roster, rules Supreme Court. Cautions that time-tested practices of the apex court should not be tinkered with. Warns against efforts that erode public faith in judiciary. Sport should be made compulsory subject and marks awarded for sporting achievements. Fields Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu inaugurates multi-crore indoor sports complex and lays foundation for swimming pool and girls' hostel in Pondicherry. Eleven CPIM workers sentenced to life imprisonment in Kerala. District Court found them guilty of murdering a BJP worker in Kannur district in 2008. And heavy rains prevent Maharashtra assembly proceedings from starting for the second day in Nagpur. Landslides stall Amarnath Yatra. Flooding reported in several districts of Bihar and Assam. 89 NDRF teams kept on standby for emergencies. The top story, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that the contribution of Asian democracies to global discourse needs to enhance rapidly. In a video message for the 4th edition of Samvad being held in Tokyo, the Prime Minister said Asia's role has to grow with its rise in economic and political stature globally. The theme for this year's symposium is Shared Values and Democracy in Asia. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe spoke at the program. Prime Minister Modi also drew parallels in the rooting of Hindu and Buddhist civilizations in democratic values. He said mutual accommodation and respect help democracy and that democracy is not just a system of voting. The first edition of Samvad was held in Delhi, the second one in Tokyo and the third in Yangon.
Openness and not dogma, and engaging in philosophy and not ideology give us our shared heritage of democratic spirit. This philosophical and cultural heritage of dialogue in the two most ancient Asian faiths, Hinduism and Buddhism, helps us promote better understanding. Emperor Ashoka's rock edict brings out the fact that Ashoka wanted the essentials of all faiths to grow. The core values of Asia, namely consideration for others, self-restraint, and mutual respect, find their historical origin in Ashoka's edict 2300 years ago. Those are the values that have sustained the culture of democracies in Asia. Historical evidence from Tamil Nadu during the reign of Raja Chola in the 10th century tells us that a detailed system of voting and elections was in vogue long before even the Magna Carta 200 years later. Democracy is not just a system of voting. Democracy, a core values such as self-restraint and mutual respect make the democratic system function for the benefit of all. Sarvajan Hitay, Sarvajan Sukhay. The Asian values of mutual accommodation and respect enable democracies to function on the consensual model and not purely in a competitive model.
And Prime Minister Modi also addressed the International Convention of Saurashtra Patel Cultural Samaj of United States through video conferencing. The Prime Minister said that it is because of the success stories of Indians living abroad that India is respected globally. He also targeted the opposition for maligning India's image. He also urged the Patel community living abroad to influence people to visit India. In his interaction, Prime Minister announced that Statue of Unity will be constructed by the 31st of October. The Statue of Unity will be the world's tallest statue and is taller than the Statue of Liberty.
અને આપણે જાણીએ છીએ કે આપણા આડોશ પડોશમાં એવા લોકો છે કે જે ભારતને બદનામ કરવા માટે દુનિયાભરમાં ઢગલાબંધ પ્રયાસો કરે છે. જાત જાતના રૂપિયા પૈસા પણ વાપરે છે. એનું કામ એક જ છે, આખી દુનિયામાં હિન્દુસ્તાનને બદનામ કરવું. અને આપણે જોયું કે જે લોકો ગયા 5-7 દશકથી દિવસ રાત હિન્દુસ્તાનને બદનામ કરવાની કોશિશ કરતા હતા. અને એક જમાનો તો દુનિયા એમની જોડે હતી. આતંકવાદ સામે પૂરું વિશ્વ ભારતની વાત સ્વીકારવા લાગ્યું છે. અને આ બધાના મૂળમાં દુનિયામાં પહોંચેલા ભારતીય સમાજના વિચારને, વ્યવહારને, આચારને, બધાને સાથે રાખવાના સ્વભાવના, બધાની વચ્ચે ભળી જવાનો સ્વભાવ, એના કારણે દુનિયાને લાગે છે કે ભાઈ ભારતના લોકો જે અમારા દેશમાં રહે છે એ અમારા દેશની અંદર કંઈ ને કંઈ યોગદાન કરે છે.
And Prime Minister Modi on Friday paid tributes to former parliamentarian Shyam Prasad Mukherjee on his birth anniversary. Lok Sabha Speaker Sumitra Mahajan, External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj, senior BJP leader L.K. Advani and others also paid floral tributes to Mukherjee at the Parliament House in Delhi. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu also paid homage to Mukherjee. In a Twitter message, Naidu said Shyam Prasad Mukherjee was a great nationalist who strove for unity and integrity of the country till his last breath. BJP President Amit Shah also paid floral tributes to Shyam Prasad Mukherjee. The veteran politician was the founder of the Bharatiya Jana Sangh. Union Minister Arun Jaitley hailed Shyam Prasad Mukherjee and remembered his contribution to the country through his blog. Prime Minister Narendra Modi today met his Bhutanese counterpart Sharif Tobgui to boost bilateral ties. India has assured Bhutan of all help required for development according to its own needs and demands. Both leaders led delegation-level talks and also discussed ways to strengthen bilateral ties. They assured that their relationship in hydropower will continue between the two countries. The visiting Prime Minister also called on President Ramnath Kovind. Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a summit meeting with his Bhutanese counterpart on Friday. Modi complimented the people and the royal government of Bhutan for becoming a middle-income country, while managing to combine the virtues of sustainable development with enhanced happiness quotient of its people. The Prime Minister of Bhutan, Sharif Tobgui, later met President Ramnath Kovind, who hoped that the relationship between the two countries will deepen further.
India and Bhutan share exemplary bilateral relations. Our relations are unique and special. Our cultural and historical linkages make us true and natural friends. Excellency, our relations are based on utmost trust, understanding and sensitivity to mutual concern and interest.
I am particularly happy to be here in Delhi at the invitation of Prime Minister Modi during the celebration of 50 years of establishment of diplomatic relations between India and Bhutan. But I remind everybody that it is just 50 years of diplomatic relations, actual relations, true friendship has been going on for centuries, Excellency.
Tobgui thanked the Indian government for its support to Bhutan's socio-economic development. Modi conveyed that India deeply valued its development partnership with Bhutan. Both Prime Ministers also reviewed the bilateral economic and hydropower cooperation, including the progress in implementation of the ongoing government-assisted hydroelectric projects in Bhutan. On Saturday, Top Gear will meet Union Finance Minister Piyush Goyal to discuss development assistance as well as impact of GST and demonetization on Bhutan. With inputs from Akhilesh Suman, Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV. In its pursuit for a manned mission, the Indian Space Research Organisation on Thursday successfully carried out a flight test for a newly designed crew escape system. The system is meant to save the lives of astronauts in an emergency. In a release, ISRO said the first pad abort test demonstrated the safe recovery of the crew module in case of any exigency at the launch pad. It said after a smooth 5-hour countdown, the crew escape system along with the simulated crew module lifted off at 7 a.m. from its pad at the Satish Dhawan Space Center at Sriharikota. This was the first in a series of tests to ascertain the trustworthiness and efficiency of the crew escape system. And to share his perspective on ISRO's achievement, we're being joined by Dr Manojkumar Patel, Director, CSIR, NISCARE. A very good evening, sir, and thank you for joining us on News Tonight. First of all, help us understand, what did the ISRO test demonstrate?
Yes, this is very important for India, and for instance, India has launched its first Chandrayaan-1 in 2008, and now we are looking forward for the Chandrayaan-2. That will be the manned mission of India, and first of its kind in India. It is joining the club after Russia, America and China for sending the manned mission onto moon. So I would like to congratulate all our scientists on this occasion for this great success, and that is going to help us for launch successfully the second moon mission. The test especially includes a lot of scientific research, scientific innovations, how we can save the life of our crew members, because life is very precious. Yes. So they have tested how the oxygen supply can be continued, can be maintained. They have also tested that how the excreta, human waste, can be recycled or can be exhausted. So these are very important areas, how we can save the lives of the people. And as well as in case of any unlikely event, we can save our crew members. So that is also part of the test.
Yes.
As a part of the exobiology, I think whatever water they carry, whatever food material they carry, they make it recyclable. So that is how they can reduce the weight, carrying weight on the spacecraft. So I think that is the test that they have carried, and it is going to be the landmark success of ISRO.
So what do you think, what are the other stages and technologies that need to be tested before India becomes a fully ready for a manned mission?
This is going to be a very ambitious program for India, and especially the second Chandrayaan mission. It has 3 components. One, the orbiter, the second is the lander, and the third is rover. Orbiter will be orbiting something like 100-kilometer distance from the moon surface, and it will inject the lander that is carrying the rover also, a 6-wheel vehicle that will land on the surface of the moon. It will also carry out various experiments ranging from the mineralogy, the presence of water ice, various minerals, and the soil. So these are the areas where India will gather the first-hand information on its own, and that will be very much useful for India as a nation. And if the information is shared across the world, it will be useful for the mankind.
Also, sir, before we wind up, if you could tell us, what does this mean for space research in India?
This is a leap, a giant leap for India for sending the manned mission to the space, and this test is very much historical and very much important for Indian scientists, especially for the ISRO scientists. That will enable India to join the club of, as I said in the beginning, 3 great nations who already have manned mission to the moon, like Russia, where Rakesh Sharma was the first Indian astronaut who went to the space, and now we are looking forward for sending our new astronauts to the space. So it is really a very proud moment, and I am very happy to congratulate all our scientists on this occasion.
Indeed, a very proud moment for India and ISRO. Many thanks, sir, for joining us on News Tonight. Moving on, the Supreme Court has ruled there is no dispute that the Chief Justice of India is the master of roster and has authority to allocate cases to different benches. Pronouncing its verdict on a plea challenging the existing roster practice of allocation of cases in the Apex Court by the Chief Justice of India, the Apex Court said the CJI occupies the role of first among equals and has exclusive duty of allocating cases. A two-judge bench in separate concurring verdicts has said it is the prerogative of the CJI to allocate cases and also nominate benches. Justice A.K. Sikri said the CJI, being the senior-most judge of the Apex Court, is the spokesperson and leader of judiciary. Justice Ashok Bhushan said there are rich conventions and practices of Supreme Court which are time-tested and should not be tinkered with. Justice Sikri also said the erosion of judiciary in the minds of people is the greatest threat to the judicial system. The court said that no system is foolproof and there is always scope for improvement in the functioning of the judiciary. The PIL was filed by Shanti Bhushan. The Supreme Court referred to a larger bench the question whether religious activities can be allowed on government land or property in a secular country like India. A bench of Justices R.F. Nariman and Indu Malhotra referred the petition filed by an organisation, Jyoti Jagran Mandal, to the Chief Justice of India for setting up of a larger bench. The organisation moved the top court after being denied permission by civic authorities to hold Jagran and Mata Ki Chowki at a park in southwest Delhi. While hearing the petition, the bench said the issue was related to an important question whether such religious functions can be allowed on public properties. Time for a short break. News and updates will continue on the other side.
Hello and welcome to Policy Watch. I am Vishal Dahiya, and this week we will take a look at two major policy decisions. So let's begin with the education sector.
A host of institutions will come up in a relatively shorter time frame and at an easier cost to the government, because instead of financing upfront, the government is going into debt servicing. It's a win-win for both the government and the education system.
Research and development is one of the most important imperatives which mostly world institutions basically focus on, and India is still lagging far behind.
Let's now take a look at the MSP bonanza for farmers.
This is a substantial hike, and this will improve the income of the farmers if it is properly implemented all over across the region.
Paddy MSPs have been hiked massively, and maybe rightly so, I mean, in terms of cost of production. But we need to find some other ways of compensating farmers.
Welcome back. You're watching News Tonight. Delhi Lieutenant Governor Anil Baijal on Friday assured the Aam Aadmi Party government of his support and cooperation in the larger interests of the national capital. Baijal gave this assurance during a meeting with Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal and Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia. But he added that Home Ministry's 2015 notification that services fall outside the purview of the Delhi Legislative Assembly continues to be valid. Earlier, Kejriwal had asserted that the Lieutenant Governor had refused to give control of the Services Department to the city government. He claimed that the centre was going against the order of the Supreme Court. Kejriwal has also sought an appointment with Home Minister Rajnath Singh to urge him to ensure implementation of the Supreme Court orders on governance in Delhi.
ये बेहद गंभीर मामला है कि सीधे सीधे वो मान रहे हैं इस बात को कि हाँ भाई 3 सब्जेक्ट्स के अलावा सारी पावर आपकी है, लेकिन वो एक उलझाने वाली बात होती है ना, जब आपने करना नहीं है तो कोई बहाना ढूंढते हैं, वो बहाना ढूंढने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं.
The Jammu and Kashmir police on Friday recovered the body of a policeman who was kidnapped by terrorists from his home in Shopian district on Thursday. Constable Javed Ahmed, who was posted as the personal security officer to Senior Superintendent of Police Shailendra Mishra, was kidnapped by unidentified gunmen from his home at Vehil. He was shot in the head by terrorists and his body found by the roadside at Sepora in Kulgam district. In a separate incident, terrorists fired upon an imam of Hanfia Mosque in Pulwama's Parigam village. The imam was admitted to hospital with multiple bullet injuries. Eleven CPIM workers were awarded life imprisonment for murdering a BJP worker at Chittaparamaru in Kannur district in 2008. The Thalassery Additional District Sessions Court has found all the 11 people guilty of killing A. Mahesh, who was an auto driver, on the 6th of March 2008. The court also slapped a fine of 50,000 rupees on each of the convicts, out of which 3 lakh rupees has to be given to the family of the victim. The murder was reportedly the result of the political tension between both political parties. Also, many people were injured during the political clashes. State Bank of India Managing Director Ajit Basu has expressed happiness over the British court's decision to freeze Vijay Mallya's assets and allowing banks to search and seize properties of the fugitive liquor baron. Basu said Indian banks are working very closely with various agencies, including in the UK, to recover maximum amount of assets owned by Vijay Mallya. SBI, as the leader of a consortium of 13 banks that lent about 9,000 crore rupees to Mallya's now defunct Kingfisher Airlines. Asked about recovery in India, Basu said the consortium has recovered 963 crore rupees from auction of Mallya's Indian assets. And heavy rains continue to pound Maharashtra. On Friday, the State Assembly could not function due to a power blackout caused by heavy rains. Both the Legislative Assembly and the Legislative Council were adjourned for the day shortly after convening as there was no power. The power supply had been turned off after the switching got flooded following heavy rains. The city of Nagpur is considered to be the second capital of Maharashtra and usually hosts the winter session of the Assembly every year. It is for the first time since 1961 that the monsoon session is being held in Nagpur. Due to incessant rains, 89 NDRF teams comprising over 4,000 rescuers have been deployed across flood-prone states in the country for relief and rescue operations. Of these, 45 teams have been pre-positioned in the states where rains and floods usually occur during the monsoon season. Meanwhile, the Amarnath Yatra resumed from the Pahalgam route after a gap of 2 days, while it remained suspended for the 3rd consecutive day from the Baltal route due to landslides. And let's now get you the monsoon update from across the country. And on to some other news. Malaysia will not deport controversial Islamic preacher Zakir Naik, wanted in India for hate speech and terror-related activities. This was confirmed by Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad, who said that Naik will not be sent back as long as he does not create any problem in Malaysia. Zakir Naik, who is the founder of Islamic Research Foundation, left India in 2016 for Malaysia, where he was granted permanent residency. Naik, who is being probed under terror and money laundering charges by the NIA, in a statement said that he would not return to India until he felt safe from unfair prosecution. India, which has an extradition treaty with Malaysia, had asked for Naik's New Delhi. In fact, New Delhi had asked for his extradition back in January. And the Vice President inaugurated a sports complex in Pondicherry, where he spoke about the importance of sports and games in our lives. He said every citizen has a right to physical education and sport. This must be recognized and action must be taken to realize this vital requirement for a good quality life. He also expressed concern over lack of emphasis on physical activity in a number of schools in India.
Sports must be made a compulsory subject and there should be extra marks in the examination for the sports. And you should also give employment also quota in the sports. That is very much required. I hope the state government and the central government, they all focus on this activity in the coming days.
And the Vice President has called for reorientation of teaching methods at educational institutions across the country. This, he said, will help bring out the latent talents among students. Speaking at the Pondicherry University on Friday, the Vice President said each institution should look into its own functioning and identify areas that require reform and those requiring transformation in consonance with the Prime Minister's call to reform, perform and transform. He also stressed on the need to turn universities into global centers of excellence in innovation and research. Interacting with students, he said education is an instrument for socio-economic transformation of individuals and the society at large. And therefore, the process of education must not end with the acquisition of a degree. He also stressed on the need to have a renewed focus on gender equality and safety of women.
I want all Indian universities at one day or other. I don't know whether I will be able to see it in my lifetime. I want to see all teaching in India, including science, including technology, including medicine. Everything is taught in their respective languages. That should be the order.
And news now from neighbouring Pakistan, where former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif was sentenced to 10 years of rigorous imprisonment in one of the 3 corruption cases against him in the Panama Papers scandal. The verdict was delivered in the Avonfield corruption case pertaining to the ownership of 4 flats in the posh Avonfield house in London. Sharif's daughter, Maryam Nawaz, was given 7 years of rigorous imprisonment and a fine of £2 million, while her husband was jailed for 1 year for not cooperating with the anti-corruption agencies. The ruling could adversely hit the Pakistan Muslim League's performance in the upcoming elections in Pakistan on the 25th of July. Following the verdict, Maryam and Safdar were disqualified from contesting elections. Both Nawaz Sharif and Maryam are currently in London, attending to the former Prime Minister's wife, Kulsum Nawaz, who was diagnosed with throat cancer last year and shifted to the UK for treatment. At least 37 Chinese tourists were killed after 2 boats capsized off the coast of Phuket Island in Thailand. The boats capsized after being hit by 15-foot high waves in a storm yesterday and were found 40 meters below the surface of the Andaman Sea, a few kilometers off the coast of a popular island, Koh Hee. While over 60 tourists were saved, 18 people are still reported to be missing. The 2 capsized boats were carrying a total of 127 Chinese tourists on Thursday for sightseeing. And that's it from us in this bulletin. Thanks for your time.